Welcome to DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, so let's get started. All right, welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today I have Chris and Ann Barnwell. Chris, Ann, how are you?
Hey.
Doing well.
You guys run Blaze Trails running, so I know I have to say that beforehand. So I really do appreciate you guys getting on. And I've run your races for years. We'll talk a little bit about your races later because you have so many and they're a ton of fun. But before I get started, why don't we do a quick introduction? Maybe Chris, we'll start out with you. Tell me a little bit about you, who you are, and then I'll kind of ask some questions about your running background, and then Ann will go and talk to you a little bit. How's that?
Sounds good.
Sure. I'm Chris Barnwell, and I am the race director for Blaze Trails Running. Just to tell you a little bit of background about myself, I spent a long time in a technology-related career before getting into race directing, over 25 years doing that kind of stuff, and eventually got burned out and moved into this. Now, the way we got into or at least I got into this in general, was from running. I was somebody who got into running a little bit later in life. Didn't really do anything competitive until I got to be quite a bit older. But prior to that, I think right around the time I turned 30, I started doing a little bit of light running. It was like run walking. My background is that I came from being quite overweight. At one point, I weighed about 245 pounds, and I went to a doctor who had said that I needed to lose weight. And at first, I just said, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And I was,
You didn't
I'm not
know
really
that you had to lose weight?
Hey, there's a period of time whenever you're in denial.
I'll
even
send
though the
you
photos,
a picture, Chris.
I
You
mean,
should have.
send it.
I should have.
No.
But,
That could be the main pick.
But I mean, at one point, I ended up getting laid off from work, and I started, and walking eventually turned to run. After several years, I got into doing some races and things like that, and things kind of
Chris, you got
snowballed.
pretty fast I was looking at some of your data there. You got pretty fast in the marathon and half marathon, pretty good. I was pretty impressed. I didn't even know you ran road races. And then I saw that your first 100-miler was Western States. How did that happen?
How did that happen? So, to continue the story there, the way that happened was I'd run, let's see, in 2010, I was training for my second marathon, and I'd been going through a divorce earlier that year, and I was running with a guy named Ed Stoddard, his wife is South African and Ed's Canadian, and they had lived in South Africa at one point. And so Ed, was, after we were training for our second marathon, he came back next year and said, "Hey, I'm moving back to South Africa." And he's, "You know what? You should come run Comrades."
Wow.
And that's what he said, Comrades. And I took it seriously and said, "Yeah, why not? Definitely should go run Comrades." I wanted to go and run a race in Africa anyway. And there was one that I was targeting, but I said, "You know what? Let's do this one instead." And so the next year I signed up for and ran Rocky Raccoon 50, because before spending all the money to fly to South Africa and everything, I wanted to just see what it was like to run a 50-miler. And so
for those that don't know, Conrad's is like 60-something miles. And so there's also, from my understanding, a downhill and then an uphill depending on the year you run it.
Yeah, it's an 89K race, so it's about 56 miles.
Oh, 56. Okay.
And yeah. And so the year that I ran was a down year. And that's just to go into it without going into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a misnomer, because they say it's a down year, and I guess it is net downhill, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some climbs. There are. It's nothing like any of the trail races that you'd run, but they're pretty substantial compared to your average kind of road race. And like I said, I'd run Rocky Raccoon 50 that year. And back then you could qualify to run Western States on a 50-mile race. And so I had a time that they qualified me to enter the lottery, because I think back then it was, you had to run a 50-miler in under 12 hours. And I think I ran 9:38 at Rocky. And so that was what I used for my qualifier.
That's pretty awesome. A 50-mile, your first 50-miler, you're getting 9 hours or something. Sounds pretty good to me. All right. So, Ann, let's talk a little bit about you. How did you get into running, and where'd you start, and all that kind of stuff?
So everything you've heard from Chris, I'm completely different, except for one thing. And that was, so I started running probably around the same age as him. I was in my early 30s, and let's face it, running is a great sport. When you have young kids, you can put them in a jog stroller, you can run anywhere. It's just easy. So I did start running at that point, but it was if I can't go to the gym, I'll run.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started very slowly. And then, very similar to Chris, in my early 40s, I went through a divorce. And that's when my running, and it was slowly building, but that is when I really went into high gear. There were times when I would run twice a day, just purely out of, if I don't go running, I'm not doing mentally well, and I would just go running. And that's how I got into it. And eventually I would never consider myself fast, but I did okay on my half marathons. I have only once gone past a half marathon. I've done a 30K, Bighorn 30K in the mountains. It's not an easy 30K.
No. Anytime in the mountains,
trained
it can be easy.
Yeah, I trained for a marathon, but it was the marathon, it was the Cowtown year that they had to cancel the marathon. And I decided it was God's way of telling me not to run a marathon. And I have never run a marathon. And I'm here to tell you, you can live a happy, fulfilled life and not run a marathon. You don't have to run 100 miles.
Agreed.
So I always think that's really good that people understand that all distances are wonderful distances if it's what you want to do.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Besides the races, and I'm obviously very involved in the races, I still work a day job. I work in communications for a financial services company. So if you ever email us during the day and you think, why isn't Anne emailing me back? It's because I'm actually working my day job still.
You're working your real job
Balance.
and then your other job.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's if you were to say one of your favorite races that you just really enjoyed, and besides the ones you guys put on, if you were to say, and we'll talk about your races here in a minute, but is there one specific that stands out?
I'll go with my half marathon PR, and it is a road race, but that's Grandma's. I love Grandma's at Duluth, Minnesota. It was actually this last weekend. I heard that this year it was hot. Our year, it was, I mean, it's in June. I was so cold. I was shaking after the race. It is my half marathon PR. It will forever be my half marathon PR. We couldn't etch that time in stone. It's not going to get faster than that.
What was that time?
It was 1:54 and 22 seconds, I think. Again, nothing wild and crazy fast, but I was pretty darn happy with it, and that's really all that mattered.
I think time is very kind of personal, right? Think about, look, we all want to try to PR and do better in different races and do different, but at the same time, when you start comparing yourselves, it's just not right because we're all in some different category or different level, right? Yeah, I want to get faster. I want to run this specific time in the half marathon, but just because I might be faster than somebody or slower than somebody doesn't mean it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's right. To be honest with you personally, I have more fun trying to compete with myself and just trying. Yeah. It's great to run some of these races more than once just to see where you're at relative to where you've been in the past. It's cool. Yeah.
So one of the races that, for me, my favorite race that you guys put on is Rockledge Rumble. And I've probably run that 5 or 6 times. I don't know exactly. But the first time I ran it, ran really fast. I was really young, early 40s, 41. I don't know. I'm 50 now. And the last time I ran it was probably a year or two ago. And I thought I just killed it. I was like, man, I did okay. And it was the 15K. And I was 4 minutes slower. I was like, no way.
Yeah. Age does.
I'm going to say, don't compare yourself to that early 40s, Chris, there. I have that all the time. It's too easy to do.
It's too easy. And I felt like I was in just as good shape or better. And maybe I was, who knows. But something I thought was interesting, I was reading a little bit about the two of you, and you met at a running group, the GRAW, right?
Yes.
And I see you guys there every year, or every year we go. We do they have this thing called the double. And so
Double trouble.
Yeah, we don't go every year, but we went, I think last year and saw you guys, and a couple of years before that, I think I saw you again. So there must be a special time. I mean,
so Double Trouble was actually my first exposure to Raw in 2008. Just was looking, and this was actually, I decided while I was going through my divorce, I'm going to run a race every month. And at the time that was a 5K or a 10K. And I ended up doing that race. And at that time, people were talking to me about, why don't you join that? I still waited a little bit. It is intimidating to go to a running club. I think
100%.
If we've been in a club for a while, we know what it's like and we're comfortable with it. But I think we have to remember it's a really intimidating experience because you are basically presenting yourself to a group of people and saying that you are a runner. And I didn't at the time, the longest since I think I had run was a 10K. And I show up and there are people talking about these 50 miles and 100-mile races. And it was hard.
Overwhelming.
It is, but it is an amazing running club, as many
absolutely.
are.
It's the same way for me. It's like even whenever I went, just getting up with the courage to go. I'd run a marathon the prior year, and I had no idea of what the level was of anybody that's there. Just because I'd run one marathon, I was kind of like, oh, there's got to be all these people that have run a lot of them. And I went, and yeah, that's exactly what it was. The running community has always been really welcoming and very open. And man, I got to tell you, where else can you go where you find all these other people that want to just sit there and talk about running?
Yeah, that's why I have this podcast. That's all I talk about. Is that where y'all met? Was that club, or because that's what I read? I thought. Okay.
It was his second run.
Yeah, my second run.
I had already been part of the group almost 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And
Wow.
it was his second run. It was me, him, a guy that was nicknamed Fireman Ken. He gave the toast at our wedding.
Fireman Ken.
And a woman, Tiffany, who we think we scared off because we ended up talking about our marriages and our divorces, and she never came back. And I always say, I'm so sorry, Tiffany. You're out there. I promise you, marriage can be a really good thing, and we still feel bad about that one. The four of us running together, and Fireman Ken joked, he told us later when we eventually started dating, he always said, he goes, I knew by mile 2. He's like, we didn't dating for quite a while for several months after that, but he always says, I knew by mile 2. So.
That's crazy. So who asked who out? I assume, Chris, you asked Anna out, or how'd that work?
Oh, so yes, but we had a little bit of a dance going for months before this. It was like back whenever I was on social media, it was like she friends me, and it's like I'll post something she likes. Every single post I had, there was a like from Ann Van Lieshout or Ann Woods or whatever at the time. And next thing, my mom is asking because she's wearing a Hope for the Warrior shirt. And the funny thing is the shirt, I don't mean to get political, but my parents my parents are very conservative and all this stuff. And it was in the same colors as a lot of those Obama posters that were out there. And they were like they asked me, they're saying, hey, is she like an Obama supporter and all this stuff? Because the concern that they have at the time.
Never mind that I'm a single mom. I could be absolutely batshit crazy.
If you're an Obama supporter, she's out. No, whatever. I don't care. You can have 10 kids. It doesn't matter. All right. So tell me about the date, or not the date, but who asked who out? What happened?
So we're both really into indie music, and he asked me if I wanted to go to a Cake concert.
Well, actually, I'm gonna correct one thing. I'm gonna add something to it. She mentioned at one weekend at Raw that Cake was coming in town.
Yeah. If you don't know who Cake is, look it up. Go on Spotify. As soon as you hear the voice, you'll go, oh gosh, I've heard this band before.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So he asked me, but I wanted to make it clear it wasn't a date because I was a single mom so I bought my own ticket. And then
it was really funny because I actually bought the tickets, and then I go pick her up in the car, and she goes and hands me the money.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. And then I handed him money for parking. Nothing says this is not a date like a woman handing you half the money for parking. I had to make it very clear.
It seemed to work out. That's funny is Leah and I have somewhat of a similar story in a way, right? Our first date was her first trail run. So I got her to run a trail run in the hill country. And it was 20 miles. I don't know, like a 30K. And it's really hot. I forgot which one it is. She ran it
one of the night Charles?
That wasn't a nighttime. It was, I can't remember. I don't know. But I got her to run. So I drove down there and she ran the whole thing. And I quit during half of it. And I was like, man, I can't even do the rest of this. She finished. Anyways. So that was how she got into trail running, and she did a lot of trail running after the fact. We both did for a while. It's been a couple of years since we've really dove back into it. Chris, you mentioned that you quit your job. I knew you when you had your full-time job as a tech guy. I think you're a BI something, doing some really cool stuff, I
Exactly.
think, or at least boring cool stuff, I guess. But
I'm trying to yeah, I was probably around that time, probably working for National Wildlife Federation at that time,
okay.
working with their membership marketing, being business intelligence, and supporting their marketing department with analytics. So yeah, that's exactly right.
I feel like that goes really well with kind of what you're doing now, at least the analytics part. There's a lot of analytics in what you're doing, right? A lot of other stuff, a lot of other stuff. But so let's talk about that. How did you two get into just it was before Blaze Trails, you guys just had some races that you were doing volunteer and things like that, but then it just eventually just all of a sudden I remember like 10 or 15, 20 races. And I'm like, damn, you guys are
So we started as a volunteer with Grasslands and Rockledge originally. First Grasslands, and then I guess it was a year later. A year later, it was Rockledge as well. NTTR at the time was having some trouble with forming a board and all that kind of stuff, and I made an offer to purchase the races from them because I told the remaining board members I didn't have any interest in being like president of a club and all that kind of stuff, but I did say that I can guarantee you that these races will survive. And so that was the gist of it and here we are 10 years later and everything is thriving. For the first couple of years, I thought about adding races and all that, but I was still working a day job and we're trying to Anne was new at Fidelity and was trying to get more established. So we're going to put
And
some
our
of that
kids were home too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the other thing. We have 4 kids combined, 2 and 2. They all lived with us. In 2015, we started out at Grasslands. 2 of the 4 were still home. 2 were in college, still coming home during the summers. The other 2 were still home, including my son who is autistic. And so really you have to prioritize. And I don't know how conducive race directing is to parenting, especially when your kids, they have their own events going on, and let's face it, they have something going on. That has to be a priority. You're not going to turn to your kid and say, I'm not taking you to this game
can't
or
go to your
this
band thing
practice.
on Saturday, sorry.
Yeah, so you have to think about those things as well. So when we got into this, my son had just graduated high school. So it really was, that timing was pretty.
You're talking about
When we added, when we added, it was the right time, not just for our family. And that's ultimately, no matter what, Chris can love race directing all he wants, but if it's not conducive to your family, you can't do it.
That's right.
I guess I was pretty surprised at first when you decided to take the plunge. And I never really heard the story, so I appreciate you kind of telling that, because I was like, man, this guy quits his full-time job and just dives right in.
And quit his full-time job October of 2019, what could only be the worst timing ever.
Weren't you getting laid off anyway? Didn't you tell me you got laid off or something? No, that didn't happen. Oh, okay. You actually quit.
I could have stayed there.
Okay.
I had a really good relationship with the people I worked with there, and I'd built up like a lot of vacation over the 4 years that I was there. And closer towards the end, because a lot of the stuff that I did, I was pretty integral to a lot of things that they were doing in business intelligence and analytics there. I had to do we're a pretty small shop, so I had to do a lot of transition. And so I used a lot of that time where I was working 2-3 days a week towards the end and spending a lot of time, the extra time that I was taking off on vacation, to do things like get prepared for 6-0, trying to figure out, because 6-0 was one of the first ones that I did on my own. Yeah, and so I spent a lot of time out at the ranch out there, just going out and finding the trails that are out there and rediscovering some of the trails that had overgrowth and all that kind of stuff, trying to figure out how I was going to put together a good course for a run course out there. And it wasn't just there. Lake Murray was another one. I spent weeks out there, and because a lot of people don't really know this about Lake Murray, but they probably have close to 40 miles of trail out there, and some of it's better than others. And I pretty much went over pretty much all of it and had to try and figure out a way to make a course that actually made sense. And
Lake Murray is hard as hell. I've done your Lake Murray one too. I was like, God damn. I really found it was hard. It was fun, but I found it was pretty tough. when I did it.
It's a challenge. It's a deceivingly challenging race. So you're not going to get like a lot of vert in it, relatively speaking. It's not that much more than Rocky. It's got some pretty technical stuff in there compared for this part of the country. It's not, I don't know. It's all relative, I guess, but it's deceivingly challenging.
So I have a question, and I'm just curious. So you get 6-0 going. What does that encompass? Like to just start a race from scratch. You say, okay, this is the place. What do you got to do? What's all the things that you have to do that people probably don't know? Unless your volunteers are helping doing stuff.
I mean, it depends on the place. If it's an established trail system, a lot of times it's pretty straightforward because you go to some places and the trails are what they are. But if you go to a place where, there's not quite as much traffic and things like that, you have to spend a lot of time out reconning and looking at the terrain and trying to figure out where, especially at 6-0, it was a lot of hours just trying to figure out where the trails were, because nobody had really mapped them out other than on a hand-drawn poster board that the ranch owner had out there, or she still has it out there. She's all, but it's for anybody who's technically inclined, it's a lot easier to have something in digital form. I had to go and spend a lot of time looking at trails because when you get on a piece of land like that, or even at Grasslands, you have a lot of cattle trails and things like that are out there as well. And it's trying to figure out what is the actual trail and not just some game trail or cattle trail that's out there can sometimes be a challenge. Sometimes I've been doing 6-0 now. This will be, I think, the 6th year. And sometimes it actually plays to your advantage because we've had a couple times where I've had to do bypasses out there because of one reason or another. And sometimes the cattle trails can be useful, but really it takes a lot of time. Takes a lot of time going out, reconning, going back, sitting down, looking at your tracks. In a lot of cases, in my case, I'll go back and I'll edit tracks and try to figure out every single segment that I've been on and the way that they connect. And because one of the things that I've always tried to do is I try to use as much trail as I can based upon what the venue allows. And I will, in some cases, rack my brain for days trying to figure out how to put a course together on this, even if I have a map, because sometimes it's not
So
exactly all that straightforward. Yeah, just that's things
Yeah.
like that in
Perm's
different
done.
places.
I was trying to think of the words.
When you're talking about dealing with municipalities or agencies, yeah, there's always a permitting process and it can vary widely depending upon which one. Some of them are easier, some of them are more difficult. Some landowners charge more, some less. Some are a little more forgiving about things like weather than others, and it runs the gamut.
So you guys have dealt with a lot of different things, whether it's weather. I've seen some of your races either canceled or redo them. I feel like that's 2 or 3 a year at least. So that's got to be a challenge.
But before that, no. But the last year was rough.
Yeah. It's not every race, but it seems like there's just.
And every race is different. And the moment weather, the harder thing in it is the moment weather comes into play, you can sense the anxiety among runners because they don't know what that means and not what it means for the race and what it means for them. So there's always more questions that are coming in. And sometimes we just have to wait and not answer them right away because
it's the same answer. We don't know yet.
and me, the hardest thing is looking 3 days out and having to make a decision that is going to be the best decision for everyone. And now knowing that we're hanging this on a weather forecast that might be totally made up.
Which typically that's not what we do. Now, what I'll say is we've had a couple of situations in the last couple of years with Coyote where we've had to do it well in advance each time, fortunately, or maybe not so fortunately, but we had to make the call early in both situations. That brings with it, a whole different set of anxieties,
Yeah.
because it's like if you cancel in advance and then all of a sudden the weather's great, it's now you've just created another headache for
Right.
yourself.
I will say, when we had to reschedule last year, we watched the weather, barely slept because I just wanted to see the whole place just get pummeled with rain. And if we canceled it, it better rain. It was actually,
I
thank
remember that.
goodness, would have been very severe. And actually the worst would have been right after the 4-mile runners would have started. And we had a lot of parents running with their kids. It would have been it could have potentially been a really bad situation. So it was the right decision.
Look,
And
I've always respected the decisions. It sucks, don't get me wrong, but it's not like you guys put on a race and think, I hope we can cancel this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not.
It's occasionally we get the kind of like social media comment or something like that, or the email or something, and it just makes me look and wonder. And sit there and say, okay, seriously? We canceled this. You really think we would do this and do something negative to impact our business? So it's
your
like,
business. I mean,
we're
that's
a for-profit company. That doesn't make any sense.
exactly.
well, it's also when you
Chris,
reschedule.
I don't know that do you know what Facebook or Instagram is or anything? Have you ever heard of those?
He does because I tell him.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just messing with you.
There was a time whenever I used to be on, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
I figure there's a reason.
Wow. Every once in a while he jumps on and people are stunned.
I know.
He has an official profile. You can tag him.
No,
He won't see it.
I've seen his Facebook profile anyways. I don't know if you have an Instagram or not, but sorry, Ann, what were you going to say?
What I was saying is, when we reschedule, it's not double the work, it's triple the work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mince words. It sucks. It is what it is. Every one of us has a job, and there's something about it that's not so fun, and that's one of those.
Well, yeah, because the thing about it is, if we have to cancel or postpone or something, there were even though we have other races we have to do, there were things that we had planned on doing during that time frame that we no longer are going to get to do. And so it just pushes some of those other things out. A good example of that this year is getting ready for Grasslands this year, because I started making a lot of the top finisher awards, engraving them myself. And so those kept on getting pushed out race after race. And after we postponed this, they got pushed out a little further. Yeah.
You couldn't get it done as quickly as you're hoping.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I didn't have the time. I just didn't have the time to do it.
So it's all right. You guys, Blaze Trails Running has 12 races from what I can tell on your website. Is that right? Is that right? Okay. That's a lot of races. And look, I've been to a lot of them. I wouldn't say I've been to all of them. So one thing that helped me understand this thinking, because when I think of a lot of these trail races, you guys have 100 milers, 100Ks, 50 milers, 50Ks. You guys have half marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks, and all this other stuff. Used to, though, there was really more of this thought. I don't call it old school. That's how it was. Whenever you ran a trail, it was a lot longer. It was the thinking. And then, and I could be completely wrong, but the way I saw it was, remember when Rob started putting on his races, he started putting on 5Ks, 10Ks, and other things. And then from my last interview and talking to him, he goes, Chris, that's the only way I can make money. Because there was no way to only make money on Ks, 50 milers, and 100 milers, because you got a lot less people showing up to some of those really long races. Anyways, I bet you guys have now 5Ks and shorter races, and I assume a lot of people come to those. And I guess my question is, that's a lot of races, and a lot of races just on one day or two or whatever it is. That you got a 100 miler over here, you've got 100K, then all the way down to sometimes 5K. Are you exhausted? You got to put on the race and then you've got to actually do it. You can react any way you want, like how I mentioned all of that. Maybe I'm wrong in my thinking, but
it's like I talked to Rob about this stuff as well back then. And actually, I think they were doing this at the Captain Carl's races as well, because they were doing 10Ks out at the Captain Carl's races for years. And
summers, yeah.
And one of the reasons why we started looking at adding a lot of those was because after going to several of the Captain Carl's races, I started to realize, and talking to some of the people that we know that run, and because I always run the longer distances typically. And, one of the things that, Ann and I also started to observe was that if you had that shorter distance race out there, that would actually give somebody who's out there to support, like their partner, their spouse, whoever, cover their kid, or maybe the kid is out there with the parent or something like that. It would give them a more accessible distance to actually tackle out
I
on the
like that.
trails.
Yeah.
And so it was something, yeah, Rob definitely did a lot of that. Now, would I say that's the only way I can make money? No, not for us at least, because the thing is, I know that when Rob was doing it, he would get tons of people running the shorter distances. So it would be a lot for us. And maybe it's more to do with the kind of runner that I am and the people that we know and have relationships with. We don't get those kind of numbers in the shorter distances. We get some, and we get their fair amount, but it's definitely the middle distances tend to be the ones that are the larger ones at most of our races, though.
So the draw is the marathon, half marathon. Of course, the 50K and 100 mile are a draw, but not.
The draw is, I would say, K to that K.
Okay.
That's really, and then don't get me wrong, Grasslands, we had close to 100 people register for Grasslands 100 mile.
Dang.
Though that distance is really coming along as well. But the 50 mile is big at that one too. That Grasslands is just a big race though.
So when y'all think of COVID, right? Like it feels like that kind of shut down everything. And I'm sure that was a very difficult time for you guys, especially since you decided, hey, I'm going to go full time in this thing, and then everything shuts down. Probably gave you some really good time to think about what has that been like since after COVID? In some races, I'm seeing running. I saw running before COVID skyrocket, went down a little bit, but then I see it skyrocketing again. It's crazy again. You literally have 50 or 60 running groups out there that just, you can't even count them these days. I don't even know like all the running groups out there, which is good. There's just one running group called Run It Up, and they literally have like hundreds. There's dancing, they're partying, all kinds of shit. Like, I don't ever have that much fun when I go to my running group.
Theo, we have not made it out there yet. I have so much respect for what Theo has done. That group, he has really done a great job there.
For sure.
Such a good job, and really reaching a group that I think by all accounts we say is underrepresented in running and really has done such a great job.
Now.
They are doing an amazing job, and I love seeing it.
Yeah, me too. So the question is more like, how's the races going like now? Is it booming? What's going on in the trail world? Or at least in y'all's world.
Things are going well.
It's awesome.
Some races are doing extremely well, and some of them are holding their own. And that's the way it goes. We've been doing this long enough now to know it's like your own running. It's each year you can't necessarily compare your performance in one year to the next because things ebb and flow. We've been doing Grasslands now for 10 years, and we've had years where we've had just early on, we had some years where we had some just really insane numbers. And then only to see a bit of a decline for a couple of years after. But now, it's booming again, which is really cool. Possums this year was insane. That was really cool because it's like Possums is one of those races that really holds a special place in my heart because that was one of the races that was on my journey to Western States because I ran the race whenever, I don't know, do you remember Dave Vandenberg?
Oh,
yeah.
He knows.
Sure do.
Yeah. So several of the races that we do now.
He disappeared. He did all these awesome races, and then all of a sudden, he's nowhere. Nobody knows.
Chris, do you remember that's where you and I met at Whispering Pines?
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
Running, as Leah was running the long distance.
I was running the shorter one.
I was sitting. I don't know where.
Yeah, we were both sitting waiting for our spouses or my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris, that's where Chris and I met.
Good memory.
Chris, that's when I met.
Yeah.
At Whispering Pines. And that was 2016 or 2017?
Yes. I feel like it was.
It was 2016 at least because, and the reason why I know this is because 2017 I ran into Lee out at Boston after running Boston.
That's right. Yeah.
Because I didn't really, that was whenever I first started to know y'all then.
Yeah, she's done 12, almost 13 now. So that's
insane. That's awesome.
She's done an amazing job.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy to kind of look back at what you're saying, and because that is where I first met you. And I remember sitting there, and I think you offered me a beer, and I was like, yeah, thank you.
That sounds like something I would do.
No, you did. And I was like, So that's when we first started getting into trail running. Like I said, I ran a few before, but we started to do more of it. And it was cool because you'd sit down and somebody would offer you a beer. And I was like, oh, that was really cool. And I remember telling Leah, I go, this woman, Ann, she just hands me a beer and she goes, yeah, that's Chris, that's her husband or whatever. I was like, no, I didn't know. But no, it's just the trail community has always been, in my opinion, dear to my heart. I've always enjoyed it, and it probably always will. I need to get back out there and to do a little bit more. So, what races do you guys have coming up? What are you excited about, and what's coming?
So we do enjoy a little bit of a lull at this time,
Good.
which is nice with the heat. Chris gets to go to Colorado and he does trail work for the Hard Rock 100. But our
Just have to
next
go do
race
some
is
more work.
Blazing Exactly. So our next race is the first weekend in August. It's a night race called Blazing Summer Sufferfest. We believe in truth in advertising. It's going to be hot.
Like 7 or something.
It is at night.
Yeah.
At Cedar Hills State Park. It's a lot of fun. And then we really dive in. September, October, November are really busy months for us with several distances. I'll give a shout out to, because I know a lot of your listeners are road runners. I'll give a shout out to Paris Pear. If you've ever wondered, gee, how do I feel about running on this route with holding my water into that different format? We call Paris Pear a road race with a trail vibe. It is on the trail, so it is really completely asphalt, and it goes from 5K, which is in the evening, we have several distances that are both morning and night, and then we also have the 100K that happens on that, and it's flat, it's beautiful. It's tree covered and lined, but it's not technical. It's a trail in the aspect that it's a paved path and it's not on the road. But give a shout out to that. It's September 5th, which there used to be a very popular race in Dallas at that date, and that is no longer there. So if you're looking for a half marathon or marathon, it's there. And a great introduction to trail running. Grasslands, which is in March, is another great introduction to trail running because it was my first trail race in 2009. It's not as technical. Really,
I've done the half marathon there, and I can attest to
Yeah.
it. It's great. Leah's done it a few times. I've done it at least once. But yeah, it's a very nice trail that it's not too technical or anything like that. You'll find a little bit of rough spots, but it's not bad at all.
Yeah, and then I'll let you do some shout outs.
Yeah, so there's always, as she mentioned, Grasslands for sure. Would really to see more people come and sign up for the 100 out there. So a couple of the races that, are kind of near and dear to my heart are, like I said, Possum Kingdom next year out at Possum Kingdom Lake. As I was saying, that one's kind of near and dear to my heart. It was on my Western States journey. I ran that race during the first 2 years when Dave Hannenberg was doing it. It's got a lot of those cool things about trail running in it that I just totally love. And the other one is Dana Peak out in Killeen. And one of the reasons why I really like Dana Peak is because that has a lot more of the kind of things that I just really love about trail running. Dana Peak, a lot of those courses that you'll see out in the hill country embody a lot of the things that it's not going to be exact, but a lot of the things you see out west at a lot of those trail races out there. A lot of climbing, lots of nice views and things like that out there.
Yeah, it's a harder one.
Yeah, it looks like it. I pulled it up on the net here, and so I was kind of looking at it. You guys go all the way from a 10K, 20K, 50K, and 100K.
Yep.
And the K is a single loop, which in Texas, that's a big deal. We're land challenged here in Texas. To have a race that has a single loop for a 50K is pretty great.
Yeah, if you're looking at kind of the ascent, it's depending on which deal you do. Like you can get a 20K, and that's 1,500 feet of gain. That's pretty big just for a trail out here. And look, I don't think that's going to be easy at all. Anything that I missed that, Chris, you completely missed this during this conversation that I probably should have covered?
I mean, we've been in this community a long time. So we've done a lot of volunteering, a lot of running clubs. And it's just something we're passionate about. I'll admit, Chris probably would have dove into this full time earlier, but I was the holdout because I just started a job, and it's something though that we love. And gosh, the people we've met. If you haven't tried trail running, I highly encourage. And by the way, we still run roads too.
Oh, yeah, of course. Everybody does. In Dallas, Fort Worth, it's almost impossible to not run on the road.
And there's room for both of it, but it is a great way to mix up your running. It's a great way to add a little interest and an excitement and challenge. But my gosh, the people in trail running, I just think it's so different than any other sport. I think part of it is the way the trails are set up. I think in trail running, it's the only sport I have seen where you can be like that average runner, even back of the pack runner, and you will still be encountering and rubbing shoulders with those elite runners or in the front of the pack, because the way the trail works, and you gain from that, you learn from them. It's just a human experience.
They're always supportive. And I remember years ago you talking about, like, when I was running Hell's Hills one year, where Paul Terranova came up and he was like, "Hey, great job!" Stops and he's out there smiling and everything.
He's looping me,
and he's looping you in the race.
You're doing great. And as he's looping me, he's going on his second or third loop and passing me like I'm standing still, but he's still taking the time to give those encouraging words. And that's what so many of the runners are like in this.
Yeah. It's like even out at Leadville years ago, with that being an out and back race, you actually see the front runners coming at you from the other direction. And that year, Scott Jurek, I think it might have actually even been his last race or last 100. And he was coming the other way and he was just like, "Hey, good job," all that kind of stuff. And it was just really cool. You see people, these elite people that are out there, and they're just so incredibly supportive of everybody. They're a part of the community. They're just like anybody else. That's the true beauty of this sport.
And I do think it's a little different from a road marathon, whereas a road marathon, that marathoner finishes, and you don't typically see those first finishers by the time you finish. It's just the layout of the course. It's just not going to happen. So it is something unique to trail running that's really nice.
I can attest to that. I remember when I got big into DDR, Lee and I, for a while, and I remember just going to different races. The gang would show up, we'd put up a tent, and we could put our stuff there. There'd be like families or a wife of somebody or whatever. Somebody comes in, "Hey, here's a towel and put ice on your head," or whatever. It was a different atmosphere, and I really enjoyed it too. And I can say this is, I appreciate the stuff that you're doing. I know that what you're doing is a lot of hard work. Just imagine it. I've done some of it, it just isn't helping, but what you're doing is a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort to put on a great experience for your runners, and just what it takes to actually do that. You got to get a lot of volunteers and all these things. That's a job in itself. All the stuff you have to do is ridiculous.
And I'm going to say, we have the most amazing volunteers.
Yes, we do.
My gosh. When Chris told me I want to make Grasslands 100-mile, I joked, Grasslands was a bear to put on when it was a 50-mile. And then we decided to do 100-mile. I'm not going to say I was always sweet.
Are you crazy?
And one of my biggest fears was, how are we going to recruit enough volunteers to really, to not just to put a warm body in place, but to put so that every aid station has people in it who really know what they're doing. And that's one thing, like, people will say to us, "You have the best volunteers." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we do. We are so fortunate." Part of it is I'll sometimes have people come to me and say, "Hey, I want to have my group here." And I'm like, I love that. But unless you have at least a few people in the group who have run trail races, this is really hard. Like, you have to have someone who really understands those runners and what they need. And it's best for the runner.
For sure.
It's a safety issue. It's all of those things. And the fact of the matter is, we had so many volunteers this past year at Grasslands. I ended up adding slots because I was not going to turn anyone away.
It's awesome.
And it was incredible. But ultimately what it was is that people just wanted to be part of helping their friends, helping a fellow ultra runner meet a goal. We were blown away. And we really do at most of our races at some point in the day, especially those long ones, we just kind of look around and go, holy smokes,
it's amazing.
Like, how lucky are we? And we really do feel that way.
And how lucky are we to have you guys that run these races, that put these races on? So no, truly, like, I respect what you guys do and have for a long time. And it's been really fun to watch you guys grow and do the things that you're doing. I know I wanted you guys on earlier, but really it's probably a perfect time because now you're resting for a month-ish and then you get right back into it and then you don't stop for another year.
It's It can be a lot. Life is busy.
Yeah.
Sure, it's busy for everyone listening too. We appreciate everyone who comes out and runs or volunteers or both. And it's a great community.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
I feel like you guys probably aren't going to add any more races because it seems like you're pretty full, or you never know.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Okay.
You know, what I'll say is it's like the wheels are always turning.
Okay.
The wheels are always turning. I have to be restrained oftentimes.
Okay,
But-
here's
Sure.
But the other thing is I got to leave space for my own running too.
Yeah.
And that's really what the challenge is,
Right.
because if you're doing races on the frequency that that we are, it gets tough. It gets tough to fit your own training in.
So here's the thing. I'm not
Imagine.
against adding other races. He can add more races, but
You heard it on DFW Running Talk.
but it's not to add.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
mean, it's
yeah.
more is just more.
Yep.
It's not better. It's actually, I would argue, it's probably worse. It has to be the right race. It has to be a good race. It has to be a good trail. And it has to make sense. With all of that in mind, and it has to be authentic to who we are, and especially who
right,
Chris
yeah.
is. So sometimes they'll be like, oh, do we have to add? I'm like, no, it's okay. Not every trail needs a race on it. Some trails are crappy and really
Yeah.
don't need a race on it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the truth of the matter. So we try to be really smart about it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on so much. I really do appreciate it. Again, I respect the hell of all the things that you're doing. Thank you everyone for tuning in to another DFW Running Talk. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at dfwrunningtalk.substack.com. I'm Chris Detzel, Ann and Chris from Blaze Trails Running here on DFW Running Talk. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for doing this and for all
course.
you do in the community.